Greetings, YouTubers. It's story time. I'm from Ireland, and I have some stories to share with you from my time in Ireland, my most recent time in Ireland. So, when I was in Ireland most recently, my son was attending a very small school in a tiny village. It was a religious village, a very, very small village called the village of Knock, Ireland. There's a very nice shrine there. There's actually an airport there where Monsignor Moran actually managed to get this little airport set up there where helicopters land there. It's quite impressive for such a tiny village. But I digress. It's storming outside, so if you do hear thunder, it's storming outside, and I thought that's a perfect time to tell a story, because that's what we used to do growing up in Ireland. We tell stories by the fire, and sometimes it was storming. We got a lot of storms in Ireland. I have a stormy temper. Anyway, my son was attending the very small school in the very small village of Knock in Ireland when I was there a number of years ago. There was an assistant principal. I believe she was just there temporarily filling in, but she was very verbally abusive to my son, and she called him gay, among other things, and my son is not gay, other than being a happy young man. He's definitely not gay. Well, his birthday that year, one of the years, was falling on a day that he would have to attend school. So I obtained permission from the staff at the school, from the principal. The principal was very nice. The school had a very nice principal. I really liked the principal. She was quite nice, very nice principal. But the assistant principal at the time, I believe she was like a temporary assistant principal, but she was just something else. I believe she was a witch. She may not have known that she was a witch, but I believe she was a witch. Anywho, I obtained permission to bring little baggies, so I just put together some dollar. They had like a discount store in Ireland. They don't have dollar stores like we have here in the US, but they have discount stores. So I put together some bags with little toys and treats, for all the kids. And I found out that one of the kids couldn't have sugar, so I didn't put sugar in there. I put other things in there, but I made sure I obtained permission from the principal to do this, because you never give stuff to kids you don't know. You just don't do that. You don't give stuff to kids you don't know. And you certainly don't go after school and hand stuff out to kids. You never, ever, ever do that. And you should never abuse a child either. I really hate child abusers. I hate child abuse. But anyway, so I had gotten permission. So on the day of my son's birthday, I arrived at the school with the little bags of treats, and I actually gave some to the staff. They appreciated it. And getting ready to give it to the classroom, the assistant principal said that the bags of treats were too big. She found fault with the bags of treats. She said they were too big. Oh my word, too big. And because they were too big, I couldn't give them to the kids in class. So she really wanted to make me look bad, and she was very nasty. So what she said to me next was, "You can give them to the children after school." "Oh," she said, "you can give the treats to the children after school." You never do that for many reasons. So I said, "Would you be willing to put that in writing? Would you be willing to put that in writing? Perhaps, perchance. Would you, darling, my dear," I didn't say it that way, but "my darling dear, would you be willing to put that, perchance, in writing?" "Of course not." She was not. She's a curse. She's horrible. "Of course not." She was not willing to put it in writing. She threatened to call the police. So in Ireland, the police are Garda. And just so you know, this is my book of shadows. And my book of shadows takes care of witches like that. Anyway, she said she threatened to call the police, who are the Garda in Ireland. And I said, "Not to worry, I already have them on the phone." "Ah!" she said. She literally shrieked, "She's calling the Garda!" And I said, "Well, you threatened to call the Garda on me, since you're not willing to put your permission in writing, instructing me to hand stuff out to children after school. I dare say, yes, I'm calling the Garda. You seem a little unstable, dear." Anyway, I didn't say it quite that way, but I called the Garda. So they gave me the very sound advice of getting all the baggies back, which I did do, and to get off the school property, because she wielded a certain amount of power while I was on the school grounds and on the school property. So I did exactly that. I got all the baggies back and I exited the school property. So the students in the classroom never saw the treats. They didn't know anything about it because she prevented that from happening. So I showed the Garda what I was trying to do, and I showed them the little baggies, and they thought it was a very nice thing that I was trying to do. But they instructed me just to go home with them, and I did exactly that. I went home with them. A lady offered me a ride home, not out of the kindness of her heart, but to cover up any embarrassment should someone on the way home ask what happened, perchance. Perchance should somebody on the way home ask what happened and why I was carrying so many little baggies of treats. Anyway, I accepted the ride, but she was a witch. She was a piece of crap. I didn't like her at all, but I accepted the ride. Well, anywho, every Friday, the kids could bring in treats every Friday, so I repurposed the bags. So I was able to, send my son to school every Friday with a bag. So he was able to share some of those treats with his friends who could have some. And he was able to tell the students what his mom, was trying to do that day that the Garda was called. Because it was very embarrassing to have police show up and talk to the police. Like, well, I look like such a bad person. What was I doing? And I was just trying to be nice. So anyway, he explained to the kids what I was trying to do that day. And they got very upset, and they did not like that assistant principal very much after that. Let me tell you, they did not like her after that. Well, since that happened, I reported her as an unsafe person. I explained the entrapment scenario that she tried to set me up by giving me horrible advice to give stuff out to kids after class, after school. You just don't do that. So she was since demoted from her assistant principal position. She since got married, and last I checked, she still has the teaching job because it's very difficult to lose a job in Ireland. But as they say, she didn't get to keep the assistant principal position, and as they say in Ireland, she had it coming to her. She had it coming, and she has whatever else is coming to her from my book of shadows, because she shouldn't have done it. No, you don't vex the Druidess. So yeah, I come from Druids, ancient Druids, and I'm a Druidess. So I do a lot of different things. But anyway, that was not nice. That was very unkind. And she was a very unsafe person. But that's how you deal with people like that. I sent them an email letting them know that my aunt was a nun, a Christian nun, whose mother superior wrote the curriculum for most of the schools and was in fact in charge of most of the schools in Ireland. And I was able to tell them that I will shove the book of rules down your throat, and where does it say in the training manual that you should give a parent the very unsage advice to hand out stuff to kiddos, innocent children, after school? You just don't do that. Anyway, there's ways of dealing with the wicked. So she has a comment to her, whatever she has comment to her. Don't vex a Druidess. Thank you for listening.